Hey guys, this is EJ Holland with the Wolverine.com, and we're back with another episode of the Road Report. But before we talk about my travels, I want to invite you guys to subscribe to the Wolverine.com today for just $29.99 until August 31st. That gets you premium inside recruiting information, team information, basketball recruiting, NIL, transfer portal, and so much more. Plus, you get to be part of the best message board community around over on the Ford for just $29.99 until August 31st. That gets you through spring football, the basketball season, summer official visit season, and like I said, so much more. Now is the time to subscribe to the Wolverine.com. If you're already a subscriber, you can gift the subscription or just tell your friends to sign up. They would love it, and it would be great to have more members on our message board community, so no downside there. Also, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is completely free. All right, guys, let's talk about my time on the road last week. So my time on the road was very strange. So I figured out that rental car companies are weird, and it was cheaper for me to rent a car for 1 day instead of 3 days. So I kept driving back and forth from the rental car facilities, switching out cars for the 3-day time period. But I did travel for 3 days, and I saw plenty of Michigan recruits. So let's start off with the first trip I made, and that was to Baltimore to see the powerhouse Baltimore St. Francis, which is home to several top Michigan targets in the 24, 25, and 26 recruiting classes. Obviously, Michigan has built a nice little pipeline to St. Francis, and while you no longer have Biff on staff, who is now the head coach at Charlotte, I still think Michigan is more than capable of landing guys from St. Francis, especially given the connections on the roster. You still have Blake Corum, you still have Derek Moore, you still have Nakai Hill-Green. So St. Francis will always be a Michigan-friendly school and a school that Michigan can continue to recruit out of. So like I said, several targets to talk about. Let's go ahead and start in the 2024 class. And we won't talk about every St. Francis target because there are 9 guys there with offers. But let's hone in on the 24 class. Michael Van Buren obviously pops up first. Top 100 quarterback. Michigan has been all in on Jaden Davis. But, of course, as we first reported, new Michigan quarterbacks coach Kirk Campbell has been in touch with Michael Van Buren. Van Buren is a prospect that I've been high on since before he was even ranked, since he was a no-star. I love what he brings to the table. He is on the short side, and he does have a low floor, but he also has a very high ceiling. He is a true threat with his legs. His escapability is extremely impressive. I love his attitude and his moxie. He performed really well against top competition nationally while playing for St. Francis. As you guys know or should know, St. Francis doesn't just play local schools. They hardly play local schools at all. I don't think their first home game was until like November. They travel around the country and play the best of the best, and that means that Michael Van Buren is going against D1 guys every single week. And I thought he was impressive this season. I thought he was impressive as a sophomore as well. So big fan of Michael Van Buren. He did visit Michigan last year when Michigan first offered, before they really turned their attention to Jaden Davis. So now that Campbell has circled back, I think Van Buren has some interest. I do think Oregon and Penn State are the teams to beat in his recruitment right now, but I think Michigan can make some noise. Like I said, there's the St. Francis connection. Van Buren really enjoyed his visit last year, so I think it's more about Michigan really making a true push here, building that relationship up with Kirk Campbell. So still some interest on both sides. We'll see if anything progresses over the next few weeks. The guy that Michigan is really recruiting hard at St. Francis is on 300 running back Dewan Williams. So when it comes to running back, we always talk about Taylor Tatum. We always talk about Jordan Marshall. But when it comes to Dewan Williams, he is a top of the board guy. Like, Michigan would take this man right now. Williams visited last month, had a great time on campus. Super quiet kid, doesn't do a lot of interviews, so it was great to catch up with him in person. He obviously loves Michigan's running back production and offensive scheme. He bonded really well with Mike Hart, and he had a chance to talk to Blake Corum, who will be a valuable recruiting weapon as the cycle progresses. Blake was also a star at St. Francis. In fact, when I walked into the coach's office at St. Francis, the Gatorade Player of the Year banner with Blake Corum's name is still hanging there. So he sees that name. It's inspiration. Dewan told me he sees himself as a Blake type back and potentially following in his footsteps. So definitely think Michigan is strongly in the mix there. I would say Michigan is in that top group along with Maryland, Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State. Ikobidegwoo on 300 cornerback, a big physical kid, fits the mold of what Michigan has traditionally looked for at the cornerback position. 6'1", 190 pounds. Like I said, another on 300 kid, just released his top 7 with Michigan in it, which was positive to see. He has not visited Michigan yet, so unlike Van Buren and Williams, he has not made it to Ann Arbor, but he told me he is planning to take a trip to Michigan this spring. I think we'll know a lot more about where Michigan sits with Iffy coming out of the spring visit, but again, just a tall, long, physical corner that definitely fits the mold of what Michigan looks for. Another kid to keep an eye on in the 24 class, he is not ranked right now, but I thought he had a really impressive in-game when I saw St. Francis this fall, and that is Idris Farouk. He has some big-time offers. He's been staying in contact with Michigan safeties coach Jay Harbaugh. Remember, Michigan didn't take a true safety last cycle, so they could take multiple at the position this cycle. And Farouk is a kid that they are continuing to evaluate, but he likes Michigan. He included Michigan in his I want to say top 10, whatever number it was in his top group. So he's looking to make a visit at some point this offseason. And those are the 4 in the 24 class with offers from Michigan. Really quickly, I'll mention an underclassman. I'm really impressed with Blake Woodby in the 2025 class. He is just a pure athlete, projects more as a corner, but can also play wide receiver. I think he's going to have an opportunity to be a 5-star level prospect. He's interested in Michigan. He actually visited Michigan way back when he was like in middle school or something. So if you're not familiar with the name Blake Woodby, I'd get familiar with it now. Let's go ahead and go to my second trip, which was back to Maryland to only good Counsel, another DMV powerhouse, which is obviously home to top 100 linebacker Aaron Chiles. Chiles has been one of my favorite prospects forever. You guys know that. Similar to Van Buren, I was high on Chiles since forever ago. Chiles is the perfect fit for Michigan's defensive scheme. He'd be a true Mike in the same mold as Junior Colson. He can get sideline to sideline. He's huge. He loves to hit. He can drop back into coverage. Very well coached and disciplined. Just checks all the boxes for me. Checks all the boxes for Michigan. That's why he's the number 1 linebacker target on the board. So coming out of his January visit, he told me that Michigan was the leader. So I straight up asked him when I saw him again last week, is Michigan still your leader? And he said, yes. Chris Partridge has already been in contact. Chiles is looking to make another visit here in early March. He told me a decision could also come soon. So the opportunity is going to be there for Michigan to close on his return visit. We'll see if they make that happen. Good Counsel is home to a few other Michigan targets. 3-star wide receiver Elijah Moore is a guy rising up the wide receiver board. Dylan Jones on 300 running back is a guy that Michigan still really likes. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see either as they were playing different sports. So I did get to see 2 other Good Counsel guys with offers. So Michigan has hit Good Counsel really hard. So we'll talk about them. One is Darian Mayo, 3-star edge. And he won't be a 3-star for much longer. I think that Mayo is going to surge into the top 300 soon. I was really impressed when I saw him in the fall. He is a monster, a legitimate 6'6", 6'7", just a huge kid. Excited to get to Ann Arbor for his first visit, looking at March 18th as the potential date for him to be on campus. Right now, I think Michigan is in that top group with Mayo. For Mayo, along with Texas, Ohio State, and a few others. Three-star offensive lineman Kyle Altuner is one of many interior offensive linemen that Sharon Moore has on the board. He's definitely a high floor take, likely a center at the next level. He visited Michigan last year, is looking to get back to Michigan in the spring. So we've talked about so many offensive line targets. I think Kyle Altuner can often get lost in the sauce, but he's definitely a guy that Michigan fans should know. So on that same day, I saw good Counsel. I also made it to Washington, D.C. and stopped by Gonzaga, which is home to 2023 offensive line signee Evan Link. He is set to enroll this summer. Looking good as always. I mean, he's 6'6", 270 pounds. I think he's a guy that is going to be an early impact player along the offensive line. Maybe not as a true freshman, but I think you'll see him play early on in his career. I think Link was one of the best lands in 2023. But Gonzaga is also home to on 300 edge D.D. Holmes in the 2024 recruiting class. So D.D. Holmes is very quiet, a kid that we haven't talked a lot about on the edge board, but he is a prospect that Michigan really likes. He told me that he doesn't have an official top group, but Michigan is very high on his mind. He's planning to visit in the spring. I really liked Holmes when I saw him this fall. Obviously, I went out to see Evan Link a couple of times, and so I was able to see Holmes in action. I think him and Mayo would be quite the duo. Holmes is also a legit 6'6", maybe 6'7". I mean, he's super tall, athletic. But yeah, he is planning to make a visit in the spring, so definitely get more familiar with D.D. Holmes. And obviously there's the connection with Evan Link, and Link has been recruiting Holmes to join him in Ann Arbor. Last day, so on the final day of my rental car adventure, I was able to get another car and head out to Stafford, Virginia to see on 300 linebacker Chris Jones. So while the focus has largely been on Aaron Chiles, Michigan will likely take multiple players at the linebacker position, and Chris Jones has been high on the list. Jones visited Michigan in the fall, really enjoyed his trip. He's looking to get back in the spring. He has not had the opportunity to talk to Chris Partridge just yet, but I would expect that to change soon. Right now, I think Michigan is in a top group along with Penn State, Ohio State, and a few others. But I think the team to beat right now might actually be Florida. Florida has really impressed Jones. He's going back there in the spring. But Michigan's still in the thick of things. I think they just need to kind of sort things out with what's going on with Hilo, what's going on with Partridge, and they'll be able to really work their way back into Chris Jones's favor. But they are still in the mix there. And as far as Jones as a player, I saw him in the fall. I got to see him at a private workout on that Saturday. And he is 6'2", 215 pounds, might be 6'3". Despite only being in that 6'2", 6'3" range, Jones is a really long linebacker. He actually plays the 5 technique at the high school level. I think he projects as more of a linebacker at the next level. I think he would likely be a will. So when you think about Aaron Chiles and Chris Jones, I would just say think about Junior Colson and Nakai Hill-Green, with Chris Jones being Nakai and Chiles obviously being Junior. I think they're all their games kind of resemble each other's games, making Chiles and Jones a really good fit for Michigan. So those are all the guys I saw last week. So for more content from my recruiting journey, make sure to subscribe to Wolverine.com today for just $29.99 until August 31st. I will be back on the road this week, so we'll be back with another episode of the Road Report soon.